If you are new to the world of interfacing, you're not alone. I have got you covered with a few pro tips in this video that you might want to be watching before you deep dive into any of the subjects. And do stick around to the end because I've got a brilliant blooper for you. I'll tell you when it's coming, but you don't want to miss that at all. Who am I? I am Kim. This is Quilt with Kim. You are very, very welcome. Let's get on to the first tip. Tip 1 is to make sure that you've chosen the right type of interfacing, the type weight of interfacing for the project that you have in mind. So I've got 4 weights of fusible interfacing right underneath the camera here. I've got a light weight, I've got a medium, I've got a heavy, and I've got an extra heavy. And it really depends on what the end project needs to do and what structure you need, or how much strength and structure and stability you need as to which of these that you need to choose. And if you're not sure about which one of these to choose, check out the video that I'll link up at the end, and that will take you through each of these in far more detail. So let's go on to tip 2. Tip 2 then is to make sure that you have got the sticky side of your interfacing face down onto the wrong side of your fabric. So you need to have established which of the sides of your interfacing is the sticky side, and you can do that by giving it a bit of a feel and working out which is the rough side and which is the smooth side. The rough side is going to be your sticky side. On some of the interfacings, the heavier weight, you'll get a really shiny side. That is your sticky side. Make sure it is face down on the wrong side of your fabric, because if it's the other way up and it gets stuck maybe to your iron, it won't come off. But that brings me nicely on to tip 3. So let's go and check that one out. And tip 3 is to always use a pressing cloth, which could be an old tea towel. This particular one is the one that my kids drew their faces on at school to raise money for school. And I think if you look, these are all the other kids in school drawing nice faces, and this is my son. Enough said. Anyway, the reason for using a pressing cloth is a couple of fold. First of all, if you've got a light interfacing, if you put your iron directly onto the light interfacing, it can ruck up and then it will dry with little hard ridges, and you don't want that. So this iron isn't on, by the way. It's a cold iron, so you don't want that to happen. The second thing is that if you happen to get your interfacing the wrong way round, and believe me, it happens probably more often than you think, either you've forgotten, you didn't know, or potentially you're having a mad menopausal moment, because they happen as well, don't they? If you've got your interfacing the wrong way up and you've got your sticky side facing up for whatever reason, then if you have got your pressing cloth in place, the worst that will happen when you do your ironing is that your interfacing will stick to the back of your pressing cloth or your tea towel. And that doesn't matter. We can end up reusing this. But if it gets stuck on your iron because you haven't got that pressing cloth in place, that's not so easy to remedy. There will be quite a lot of swearing involved, I expect, but trying to get that stuck on interfacing off is a nigh on impossible task. So that's that. Also, even if it doesn't get stuck onto the base plate itself, you can get sticky residue. So if you're just if you're pressing your interfacing on, you can get some sticky residue left over on your base plate. That can be quite difficult to get off over time as well. So we want to try and avoid that and keep our base plate nice and clean. So use your pressing cloth when you're putting your interfacing on, and it will save you quite a lot of tears. But let's go on and check out number 4, which is do a small little test piece first. So before you commit yourself to putting your interfacing over the whole of your project, just like the project instructions say, get a little piece of fabric and stick your interfacing on it to see how it reacts. Does it bond as you expected? Does it give you the right weight that you're expecting? Are you fine handling it? You want to be knowing all of that before you commit to the entirety of your project. So it just saves a bit of heartache later on and a bit of frustration later on is to do a small test piece to see how it reacts. So what is the next tip then? The next bit, we need to be playing tip bingo, don't we, and see whether you've ticked these off. The next tip is when you're using your iron, we are pressing. We're not ironing like you do your clothes, we're pressing, and when we're doing that, it helps the heat transfer down through your interfacing to get the glue to warm up and then stick to the back of your fabric. So you're pressing, you're not ironing with your iron. Okay, and as I said in a previous tip, this iron isn't on at all, it's not plugged in, it is a completely cold iron. I'm just here for showing you what's what, so make sure you're just pressing, not ironing. And that brings me on to the very final tip. I wonder if you can guess what that is. I promise it will make your life a lot easier. Okay, so it may not make the whole of your life easier, but it will make cutting your interfacing a little bit easier. It's just something I've discovered with all the interfacing I've cut, and that is the little rough patches on the back of our rulers can catch on the right hand side of our interfacing. So what I've discovered is if you flip your interfacing over and place your ruler on the wrong side of your interfacing, on this rough bobbly side, it can make your cutting so much easier. If you've got one of the heavier weight interfacings and you've got that shiny side where the glue is, use that side as well to do your cutting from, and you'll find that you don't get that sort of sticky when it catches on the back of your ruler, because it just makes the whole process quite frustrating. So let's get on to the very final tip. Maybe that will make your life a lot easier than this one. So let's get on to that one. And by the way, that blooper's coming up. And our final tip, which can save hours of annoyance, is on the bottom of your interfacings. It depends on the brand. This is Vliseline, and they do this. This is the only brand I tend to use for my interfacing. So if you've got Vliseline, you'll have a code on the bottom. If you've got another brand, check to see if there's a code on the bottom. If there isn't, then there's a part B to this tip. So if you've got a code on the bottom, this F220 that you can see here, that tells me what type of interfacing this is. And if you're stuck, you can look it up on Google. You're very easy, you can put that code in, put Vliseline F220, and it will tell you what this is. This happens to be a medium fusible iron-on or fusible interfacing or iron-on interfacing. So this code tells me which interfacing this is. So when you're using your interfacing, don't cut this bit off first, leave this bit to last. So when you've got your scrap left over, your bit left over, you always know what type of interfacing this is. And if it has gone from the bottom for whatever reason, sometimes you're cutting and it is gone, just get a pen and write it on the bottom of your interfacing, which it will do. Like that. It won't make any difference if you're putting it inside a project. That'll all disappear in time, or of course you can throw it away, but either make a note right on the bottom or leave that little code on the bottom of your interfacing, and that will save you hours of wondering which interfacing you've got stashed in your drawer, in your box, because when they don't have the codes on, they can look shockingly similar. That's all I can say. And even after all my years, I do find it a bit difficult sometimes to tell the difference between the similar weight interfacing. So keep that code or write that code on the bottom. Anyway, I have promised you a blooper coming up. You are not going to want to miss this. So I'm going to say my goodbyes, but stick around for this blooper that will come up in just a second. Yeah, I promise you'll love it. So I hope this has been helpful to you. If it has, please don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that notification bell. My throat's drying out, so I probably need to say goodbye and see you next time. So I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye. Thank you, Shadow. That was Shadow making an appearance. You coming back? Shadow likes fabric. This isn't very helpful, Shadow. I've got all these lovely people who'd like to know about interfacing, and you are lying on the interfacing that I need to show people. Let's move my camera up. He is laying right on my interfacing here. I think we might have to pause this and start again.